Hello developers, welcome back to my channel. So recently I have started a free mock interview series. It has been designed for Java Spring Boot backend developer, and if you are preparing for your interviews, or if you are going to attend your interviews in coming days, and if you want to have a same environment, basically interview environment, where you can learn about how to tackle the question, how you can frame your answers while giving any technical questions. So if you wanted to have answer of those all questions before your interviews, so that you will have a clear idea like how to approach any questions in any interviews, so you can book a slot, or you can book an interview call with me. Link is there in the description below. Today we have Dev with us. Hi Dev, good evening. So hi everybody, today we have Dev with us. So to this will be the first our interview call with Dev, and let's get it started. So Dev, first introduce yourself, like which company you work, which all tech stack you are using, and then we can take it further ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, hi Prakash. So, like you, I also work in SAP only, and I joined as a scholar. Currently, I work with Java. So, for my first practical phase, I used to mostly work with Angular in front end. Past 6 months, I have transitioned more into back end, into Java development. Before that, I used to work in back end mostly in Python. But yeah, past 6 months, I've been working in Java, yes.
Oh, okay. So which all tech stack you have used so far?
So far, like before SAP, mostly internships. So back then, I used Python most of the time, Django, Fast API, and some other Python frameworks. And front end also, I used to do React back then. Ever since I joined SAP, front end I have mostly used Angular, also a bit of UI5 and your typical DevOps, Docker, and all those things. In backend, Java, Spring Boot. In my team, we have another framework built on top of Spring Boot, so we use that along with a little bit of Spring Boot. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this year you have joined as a scholar at SAP, right?
I joined last year, 2023.
Okay,
so currently in my second phase, which is about to end.
Okay. So I will make a separate video on Scholar, like what is the Scholar program at SAP. So further we can start with, like, I have collected few questions which basically I used to ask to my fellow interviews wherever I used to go to take interview. And these all question I have make, and as per my experience, because earlier I used to give the interviews, right? So I think more than 50 interviews I have given past, I think 1.5 years. So I have collected few questions, and that will basically I will discuss today. And at the end I will give you the customized feedback which all area you're supposed to improve to better in the coming days, right? Okay. So you have a basic idea of the Java, right? So first question.
I would say basic.
Yeah. So first question would be, what do you mean by 4 pillar of Java?
Yeah. So the 4 pillars are your typical object-oriented programming pillars. Your abstraction, encapsulation, your inheritance, and this is one more which I'm forgetting. But I would say, oops, you can say. Yeah.
So what you already said? Encapsulation.
Abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. Yeah.
So can you tell a bit about a very short description of these all pillars?
Yeah. So okay, first I'll start with encapsulation. So encapsulation is your typical data binding. You can kind of understand it like in a class. You will have the data as well as the modifiers. That will be your encapsulation. Abstraction is kind of data hiding. So again, as a programmer, you don't need to worry about the implementation. So we only expose, you can say, certain APIs via interface. So that would be abstraction, and the inner workings are kind of hidden from you. Again, coming back to polymorphism, that is like the behavior, like overloading and overriding. So how you can kind of, polymorphism is like taking multiple forms. So how with you can make it take multiple forms. Then there was abstraction, encapsulation.
Yeah, abstraction, encapsulation are done. Polymorphism is also done. One rest thing is like inheritance.
Yeah, so inheritance is basically like if you have a parent class, you kind of inherit from it. Saves you a lot of like code redundancy, and also makes like any logical fallacies easier to find. So if I kind of have a class already existing and I want to extend its implementation, instead of having to define the entire thing, writing a lot of code, you can just inherit it, and it gets all the protected views, and you can reuse it kind of. Yeah.
So basically, main purpose of inheritance is code reusability, right?
Yeah, one of the reasons.
Okay, so here further question could be, in Java, is it supporting multiple inheritance?
No, it does not support multiple inheritance because of the general diamond problem. So you have only like single level inheritance in Java. If you want to do multiple inheritance, I mean, kind of you will use interfaces. They kind of enable it. Again, that's not straight up multiple inheritance. You just kind of get the abstracted API. You have to implement it yourself.
Correct.
But in Java, there is no like multiple.
Yeah. So what is the main reason why multiple inheritance it is not supporting? Like, can you give one example?
Yeah, so as I said, the diamond problem. So let's say you have class A, B, and these are both parent classes, and you have class C, which is like inheriting from both of them. And both of them might have a method, let's say get, for example.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes an issue that which get do you want to call? Do you want to call the get method of class A or class B? And apart from that, also one big thing is about the constructors, which constructor you want to call, because in Java we use the super keyword to call the parent constructor.
Yeah.
So which constructor to call? So that is the diamond problem. It is basically, you can say JVM will get confused which method to call. So
which method
that is one problem.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, and another question is how you can make it class immutable.
How you can make a class immutable? Okay. Yeah. So first thing you want to do is only provide the getters. Don't provide any setters. So you do not want to provide any way to mutate the object directly. Another thing that what you can do is in the constructor, whenever someone tries to make a object, like change it, you return a new instance of the object. That way, if you do not expose setters and you kind of modify the constructor to return a new implementation every time or new object every time, then in that way you can make the class immutable.
So what about attributes of the class?
Which attributes?
Of the class.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you want to make them private, so they cannot be accessed directly. They should be private. The only way to get the value should be like a public getter, and you don't want to provide any setters. And again, about the constructor, you want to return a new item every time. Yeah.
Okay. So should be class also be private or final, or how it should be?
Yeah, you can make the class final because you don't want any other class to be able to like inherit it. But again, personally, like if you are making the fields private, so again if you are inheriting it, the base class, or sorry, the derived class will not be able to get the private elements anyways. So you're kind of extending it like in a totally different way. But I think if you are trying to make a class immutable, it is advised to make it final to prevent any like unauthorized or unexpected changes. Yeah.
Okay, so only class size we supposed to make a final, or along with the attributes as well?
I think the attributes can also be made final. Like whenever you are trying, because we don't have a setters, right? So we don't need to set the values anytime. Anytime you want to set it, you will do it via the constructor. So it can be only like one-time initialization. So you can make the attributes private final. Yeah.
Okay. Can we override a final class?
Override as in inherit from it?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so final class, no, you cannot, because that's the whole point of making it final, so that you cannot like inherit another classes from it. So if you try that, you will get an error.
But why? Like, can you give me the reason why we cannot override? Basically, why we cannot inherit in another class?
Yeah, so that is the whole point of the final keyword. So final keyword is like when you don't want, let's say we have abstract classes. The whole point of abstract classes is to like you inherit it from it. But for final classes, you are kind of telling that I don't want any other class to extend that class.
Yeah,
so
understood.
Final keyword.
Yeah. So next question is how Hashmap internally like working? How basically key value pair is getting like managed in Hashmap?
Yeah. So for Hashmap in collections, we have a separate type of data type called map entry. So we use that, and how it is internally it's kind of like an array, and for each array you have a bucket size, and respective to it you have how many items you can store. So when you initialize a hash map, it will have like a bucket size and weight, how much like filled it should be, and then whenever you try to add a new item, so it will try to calculate the hash code of the key. So whenever in map you want to insert the key and value pair, so the key it will try to calculate the hash code, and it will go to that respective hash code via the hash code function. It will get the respective mapping in the array. Then it will go to that array and it will try to insert that value. Now if there is no other value, it's all good and fine. It can just insert it directly. If there is another value already at that location, so how there are multiple ways to handle collisions, but how in Java it does is it just creates a linked list and keeps adding to it. So at that time, it will use the equals method to see, okay, if this item already exists. If it already exists, it will override. If it does not exist, it will just append it to the linked list. And that's how Java Hashmap works. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say we have a 10 different entity classes, okay, basically objects, okay. So we are storing 5 different student details. We want to store those in Hashmap, and let's say two like object has the same details, but as like we have to store in a Hashmap like unique key, right? So how those things
Yeah.
we can handle it?
I didn't quite understand your question. Could you
Okay,
like
so
rephrase
basically,
it?
let's say we have a 5 different objects of a student.
Yeah.
We have a student
Yeah.
entity class, and
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
want to store unique student details in our hash map, right? So how we can store it?
So if you have the student object, how it works in Hashmap is like, I'm assuming all the 5 students are different here, right? So you want
Yeah,
to
but
link them in-
I'm giving you the example. Let's say we have 5 different students, right? And sixth one again we have like a student object itself, but that is the duplicate one. Let's say duplicate of second. But I want to store a unique one, because as we know, Hashmap property, it stores the only unique key, right? So
Yeah.
Hashmap should have only unique student details. So how that
Yeah.
thing we can like do?
Oh, okay. So you want to store the duplicate one, yeah. I think the easier way would be to kind of convince the Hashmap that even though it is a duplicate, like make it unique via the hash code. So again, that is a dirty way, I would say, that you can manipulate the hash code so that the Hashmap thinks it is.
Okay, so see,
like
whenever, so
the
here is
other-
the hack. So whenever we are creating object, right? So
Yeah.
that will holds one address, and that address will be the
Right.
unique for all the objects, right? So
Yeah,
if we
yeah.
are passing that address or nothing but that object to the hash map, right? So hash function
Yeah.
will have a different address, even though there is
Yeah.
a duplicate student details, right? So
Yeah.
internally, how will basically which all things we have to use so that we can make sure this hash table will have a only unique basically student details. You understood the question, right?
I'm still a little bit confused about the question.
Okay, so let me clear it out again. So
Yeah.
as per the property of hash map, it will
Yeah.
holds only unique key, right? If
Yeah,
there
it
will
will
be
hold
again
only
the
unique
duplicate
keys.
key, it will override, correct?
Yes, it will
Okay, so
overlap,
we
yes.
have 5 student details, and another one, sixth one, we again we have taken another one, and that is a duplicate of second one. So we have 5 different, but sixth one is a duplicate of second students, right? So I want to store
Yeah.
those all 6 details, but I want to store as per the property of key, it should be unique, right? So I want to store all the unique value in the hash map, those unique student, right?
Yeah.
So how we can achieve that?
Like if you want to make it unique and overwritable, if there is an ID attribute, that would do well. If you don't want to like you want to like keep the duplicates as well, first thing that's coming to my mind is a multi-map, or maybe you could use an
Let's
array.
forget it. So
Yeah.
if you haven't read it out, just go and try to read it out whenever we will have like multiple objects. So when we talk about the keys, right? So those all objects will have a different address, right? So definitely that keys will be the different one. So it will take
Yeah.
and it will take those all details, it will store into the hash map. But whatever the requirement we had, we want to store the unique students details, but we have already stored the duplicate one, right? So in that
Yeah.
case, you have to use a hash function along with the equals method. Using that, basically we can take any field of that object. Basically
Yeah.
that you have to do the external implementation.
Yeah,
Got it?
that's what my first answer was.
Yeah, but see, you
Yeah.
said hash function, something else you can use, right? But to be,
Yeah.
whenever you are speaking some answer, just be clear. This is how we
Okay.
have to do. You said
Yeah.
internally it will handle, but internally it won't handle. Somewhere we have to do those like in our own basically code implementation. We have to use
Okay.
hash method and the
Understood, yeah.
that equals method. Okay, just read
Yeah.
it out few things. You will like get more clear idea on this. Okay, so next question is, what do you mean by concurrent modification exception?
Concurrent modification exception is one when you get like you get it in the collections library, like mostly in array and hashmap, and you get that when let's say you are iterating over a data structure, and while iterating it detects that you have modified it. So how it works is basically let's say you are iterating over it via an iterator. So all data structures in Java have a mod count property. So
Okay.
that holds how many times it has been modified, and iterator has like its own mod count. When you create the iterator, it gets it from the hash map. So every time you iterate, it checks that has the original data structure been modified. If like it has been modified, that means the mod count of the hash table or array will be different than the iterator, then it will throw a concurrent modification exception that this data structure has been modified since you started like iterating over it.
Yeah, so you given the answer, but it was a bit more details. But whenever like there could be a one line solution, like one line answer. So whenever the multiple thread is working on a single data structure, right?
Yeah.
One thread is trying to modify, one thread is trying to access, right? So in
Yeah.
that case, both the thread will in that case, that is the situation
Yeah.
where it will this exception will be thrown. Okay, got it. So what is the Java 8 feature?
So biggest Java 8 features was like the stream API, the lambda functions, interfaces default methods.
Okay, yeah,
and
correct.
Like there was one more thing with interfaces I forgot, which allows you to, like, if the interface only has one method, functional interface. Yeah,
correct.
So these were some of the major Java 8.
How we can create functional interface, and what is the definition of it?
So So functional interface is one. It has only one method, so it cannot have more than one method. So you create a normal interface and let it have a method, and then you annotate it. You use the annotation functional interface. The main advantage is that when you are using a functional interface, instead of having to implement the interface like in a very lengthy way, you can just use a lambda function, and you don't need to write the implements, extends, or the function name.
So what are the different type of functional interface in Java?
I am not sure about that.
Okay.
I haven't, I haven't explored the different types of.
So what is Java Stream API?
So Java Stream API like allows when you have a collection, it allows you to perform it allows you to kind of do functional programming on top of them. So you can iterate or map or any kind of functional programming paradigms as well as parallel stream. So that you can do via Stream API. It allows you to get one item at a time, or you can also get multiple items if you use parallel stream, and then you can iterate or do any kind of logic you want on them.
Okay. Okay, so you have worked on Spring and Spring Boot. Which one you have worked on?
Spring Boot a little bit, because as I said, in our team we have another framework built on top of Spring Boot, so very less Spring Boot, and yeah, but I have a little bit.
Okay, so I have like few questions only from Spring Boot. So what is the difference between Spring and the Spring Boot?
So Spring Boot is kind of built on top of Spring. So Spring, as you can say, was the earlier framework that was released with Java. And the main thing is it is a lot more extensible. It has a lot more features. You can customize it a lot more. It's a bit more complex as well, that you need to do a lot of boilerplate things, like you have to create the beans yourself. You have to, any kind of properties, if you want to do, you have to define it in like XML files. But Spring Boot, it makes it very easy. It auto configures. You can use a lot of annotations, and the development speed is much faster.
Yeah, so this answer is overall good, but try to make a few points, let's say 3 or 4, so that it will be more clear while comparing the two things, right? Okay. So what do you mean by in-memory database?
So in-memory database is something like H2, which we have in Java. So like our normal databases, they are stored in the disk. All the data is stored in the disk. In-memory database is like it will store on the data in memory. Something like Redis can also be an in-memory database. The main thing is you would use it for like caching, or like if you want to test, if you're doing testing, but you wouldn't want to use in-memory database for persistent data, because if the app restarts, all the data in RAM memory is gone. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So so we are I think I'm done with all the theory wise. So there would be one Java coding question. So we have a list of a student. You have to sort the list of a student, not basically list of object of a student, right? So there is a 5 different object like of a student class. You have to store, and then you have to sort it by the name of that student.
Okay.
Use Java concepts.
Okay. Do you want me to write it down?
Just give me the your approach. What things you gonna use to solve these questions?
Yeah. So first thing, like if you have a list of student, I'm assuming it's an array list, right? So we have we can either use arrays.sort or collections.sort, either works. But since we have an array, so I'll use that array.sort method, and I will provide a comparator. So because it is an object. And in the comparator, it will get it compares between two objects, so it will get both the objects. And for both the objects, I will make a comparison based on the that name property of it. So string comparison we can do, and whichever is the like lexicographically smaller one, I'll return that or return true for that, and that way using arrays.
So which
sort,
method
we can sort
is present in comparator? Which you gonna use
sorry?
to compare to like a string, right? So which method you will be using from comparator?
No, so in the arrays.sort method, it is overloaded. So you can pass two things. The first will be, sorry, arrays.sort, you can give the comparator. So again, that comparator itself will from the array take the two objects. And once you get the objects, then I'll get the name property, which will be a string. And then for book, you have two objects. So for both the objects, I will do that string comparison. So I'll use the sort method. A comparator had a few methods which I'm forgetting the name. I haven't used the comparators in a while, but if need be, I will just Google it. What was the
because these are all the questions I have asked. I have been asked with like different interviews, so that is why I asked. But just go through. I think almost 50-60% you have said correct. But I think while if you go with the implementation, whatever we thought, right, there could be some more extra effort we have to put while implementation, right? So just try these all things. I think if you talk about your feedback, I think you are good with the Java. At least I didn't ask much that Spring Boot side. Because again in Spring and Spring Boot there is a lot of things, there is a lot of innovations, right? There is a lot of basically Spring Security, Spring MVC, Spring Data JPA, and there is a lot of things, right? So maybe for that, if you want, we can schedule like another interview calls. But for this call, I think for feedback wise, you are good with your Java theory wise. I didn't like check your like DSA or like how much you are good at the problem solving skills, but you are too good when we are talking about the Java backend theory, and just focus on few implementation thing. Let's say how you can implement your custom hash map, right? How basically you can store the object in a hash map in a unique way, right? So that you can have unique details, and try to do some problem using stream APIs. So these all are the like main focus things which generally in any interviews they used to ask. So how many years of experience do you have right now?
1.3.
Okay, so I just prepared these ask question just to 0 to 3 like years of experience. This is like all the question will be around this much only. So thanks for the joining today's call. Whatever the question I have asked to you, along with that I have collected like lot of questions. So for that I have created one question bank along with the different Spring and Spring Boot notes. So that is there on already on TopMate. So if you want, you can go and check it out, and if you want, you can just download it. Okay. So thank you so much to join the call, and